When he entered the cave, he thought he would find only stone and silence, but instead of silence, there were groans. Instead of darkness, there was the memory of someone else's pain. He wanted to get out, but the cave does not let go of those who hear. He did not intend to go there. It all happened spontaneously, as if someone or something had pushed him to this decision. That forest route he never used, that inconspicuous signpost pointing to a disappearing path deep in the gorge, and that stone slightly shifted to the side, an opening barely visible in the rock. He did not know why he turned. He just went. The cave began with an ordinary opening. Atmosphere, moisture, the echoing echo of footsteps. He turned on his headlamp, the beam pierced the black information. The stone walls reflected the light dimly, as if not wanting to return it. He took a step, then another, and with each meter, as it turned out, he went not just into the depths of the mountain, but into the depths of something else old, silent and watching. After 5 minutes, he noticed that the silence was too absolute. Not a drop of water, not a sound of life. Only he and his own breathing. He would have already returned, if he had not heard. The first groan was like a muffled sigh. He stopped, straightened up, listened, but the sound disappeared. Perhaps it was the echo of good steps hitting the unevenness of the tunnel. He went on. A few meters later, the groan was repeated, a little louder, and already with a hint of fear or pain. His hands trembled, and he suddenly put his palm on the wall. The stone was cold, but strangely enough, pulsating, as if breathing. He pulled his hand away, turned around. There was no exit in sight. The light of the lantern faded into the darkness. Behind him, it was dull and lifeless. "Who's there?" he shouted. There was no answer, only silence. He took a step back, and then a third groan was heard loud, like the torn cry of a silent creature. He closed his eyes, clenched his teeth. His heart was pounding. He could have run. But he didn't. He walked on. The tunnel gradually narrowed. The walls seemed to be drawing closer. The air became heavier. Strange marks began to appear on the walls, not inscriptions, not drawings, something between scars and claws. Traces of pain imprinted in stone. And then he entered the hall. It was something more than just a cave. A room round with a high arch, located in darkness. The stones were covered with soot or mold. In the center there was a depression, forming a dried-up pond, and on the walls silhouettes, outlines of bodies if they were pressed into the rock. And then he heard her voice. "You came." The voice was quiet, female, and not an expert on any body he could see. It seemed both near and far, like the sound inside the head, but with an echo reflected from the stone. "Who are you?" he said barely audibly. "We, not one, all of us. We who were forgotten." He took a step back. The floor under his feet trembled. From the deep corridor below him came a muffled cry, then another, more voices, children's, women's, old people. They merged into a strange cacophony, but in its structure. Like in a song, they carried out punishments. "These are the dead?" He asked, not believing his words. "No," the voice whispered. "We are the living, who have suffered so long that we have become stone. Our groans are all that remain." He felt the walls pulsating, as if every sound was an echo of someone else's agony. And the deeper he went into the room, the clearer their stories became. Not in words, but in feelings. He felt hurt, loss, betrayal, disappointment. He walked up to the wall and touched the silhouette, and then everything was flooded, a wave of pain like a blow to the chest. Tears gushed of their own accord. He didn't know whose pain was in that silhouette, a woman who had lost a child, a boy locked in a basement, an old man forgotten by everyone. He didn't know, but he felt it. "Why do I hear this?" "That you are one of us," the voice answered. "You carry pain. You don't deny it. You can become a guide, to those who will bear our groans, our expectations, to those who will let us go." At that moment, the air in the hall became heavier. A drop of moisture fell from the ceiling, falling into the depths in the middle. And suddenly, in that depth, a dim light lit up, blue, pulsating. He came closer. The light did not ignite, it rang. The sound was almost inaudible, but if you listened closely, you could distinguish notes, not a song. A prayer. "What is this?" "Our voices." They are all that remains. If you sing with us, you will set us free. I do not know the words. Words are not needed here. Only the heart. He stood at the edge of the circle and closed his eyes. His heart was beating in his chest. The blood was roaring in his head. But deeper inside, something else sounded. As if his whole life, with all the unbearable memories in that moment turned into sound, he thought, and began to sing, at first in a whisper, almost hesitantly, but the stones in the cave responded. Hundreds of voices began to pick up his melody, at first quietly, then louder. They were not united, it was chaos, but harmonious. As if your pain had found its note, he felt how the light inside the depths became brighter, how the walls ceased to be friendly. They began to listen, and then to sing. He didn't know how long he spent in that silence. It wasn't oppressive, but almost gentle, as if the pain itself had finally fallen asleep. The light in the center of the circle slowly faded, and with it the groans disappeared. One by one, like departing souls, they dissolved into the depths of the cave, leaving no trace. Only an echo occasionally flared up with a short echo, like the residual heat from an extinguished fire. He stood up. His legs didn't obey him at once. It seemed that the air itself had become denser, like water. He looked back. The figures on the walls had disappeared. There were no more tracks. The cave now looked like an ordinary empty cavern, unremarkable. But he knew something great was happening here. He went back. The light of the headlamp again pierced the darkness, but now it did not seem hostile. He walked silently, unhurriedly, step by step, and with each meter it became easier, as if he was throwing off the burden of someone else's pain. Or his own. Halfway back he heard movement, light as the wind. He stopped. "You did what others did not dare," said the voice. The same, female, but now calm. He did not answer. He just stood listening. "You thought you came here by chance, but there are no accidents. The cave calls to those who carry wounds within themselves, and if they are open, it means you are able to hear others." He turned slowly. She stood behind him, now without a hood. But her face was impossible to describe. It seemed to shimmer, composed of hundreds of other faces, changing every second. A woman, a child, an old man, a soldier, a mother, the face of pain, fear, love, and loss all in one. "Who are you?" he finally asked. "I am pain that seeks oblivion." "But you did not give me oblivion. You gave me a voice. And now I am free," he nodded. There was no need to say more. He understood. It was not one soul, but the very essence of suffering concentrated in one place. And now that it sounded, it found peace. "What will happen next?" "You will return to your world, but you are no longer who you were. Your pain will not disappear, but now it will not destroy you. It will be your gift, a gift. You will be able to hear those whom others ignore. You will be able to feel those who are silent. And if you want, you can bring them here." He understood. The cave did not close. It awaits new voices, not to torment, but to listen, to cleanse. She extended her hand, and when he touched her, the darkness disappeared. He stood at the entrance to the cave. Morning. The first rays of the sun gilded the trees. Birds were singing. Everything was strangely ordinary. And yet he felt something had changed forever. He slowly walked away from the rock. The forest rustled around him. The branches creaked as if whispering, "You came back different." The sun was rising higher and higher. He took out his phone. It was 5 in the morning. Not a single missed call. The world went on. He opened his notes and began to write, not for himself, but for those who would someday hear, so that they would know pain is not an enemy, silence is not salvation, and silence can be the loudest thing in the world. A few days passed. He was returning to ordinary life, or pretending to be returning. The people around him were the same, fussy, busy, detached. But he began to notice what had previously flown by, the tears of a woman in the subway whom no one asked what happened, the trembling fingers of a man in a store as he counted change, the empty gaze of a teenager staring at his phone not from boredom but from despair. He heard. And sometimes, in a whisper, he sang. Every evening he returned to the notes. The words came by themselves, not stories, moans. Soft, subtle, but alive. And he knew sooner or later someone will hear, someone will want to know where that cave is, and he will bring them, not everyone, only those who are ready. One day, closer to midnight, he received a letter. No name, no subject, just one line. I hear them. Help. He was not afraid, he only smiled, because he knew the way is open. The cave of forgotten moans has not disappeared. It is waiting. Somewhere there, in the heart of the mountain, where the walls still breathe the echo of someone else's pain. And if you hear it, it means it's time to go.